So, in life, I feel like there are certain names that you come across that seem to always have one common trait, like, linked for that name. And it's not like, oh, every single George I've ever met is just like this, or it isn't ubiquitous where every single name has this. But there are some where it's like, oh, every person I've met with that name is kind of like this, or they've got this going on, and that's what I want to create as the word for today, and categorize what those are. And the word that I want to come up with is Enignames. And that is really just the combination of names and the word enigma, because it's kind of this special, isolated incident of like, wow, every time I come across someone with that name, this is what they're like. And really what my origin is for why I've thought of this word and why it came to mind, I think almost every person named Maddie that I've come across is very attractive. I don't know what it is. It's something about that name. I don't know if they go to like a Maddie boot camp. Like the second they're born, they're like, all right, you are going to be super hot for your life. I don't know if that's just like something that happens at the hospital. They're just transferred over to a hot camp. I don't know. But it feels like a disproportionate amount of people named Maddie are just really hot. Maybe it's just weird luck that like 90% of the Maddies I seem to ever come across are just really attractive. It feels like there's just certain names that have a lot of people with that name doing one thing or just like having some commonality. For the one that I've noticed the most of, it's like Maddies are really fucking hot. I don't know why, but that's just my experience. I've noticed that. If I'm getting set up on a blind date, if I hear I'm going with a Maddie, I'm feeling good about my chances. If I'm going with, I don't know, a Gertrude, you probably don't feel too good. But, I mean, also, Gertrude's probably just not as much of a modern name. I can't think of, like, a great example for, like, a more modern name. Maybe Elizabeth? Of course, like, there's going to be variability everywhere. There's probably plenty of Maddies that aren't attractive. And then, of course, there's tons of other names of people that are attractive, and even if there is, like, a Gertrude, there might be one that's just smoking. I mean, like, of course there's variability, but, like, the general sense and kind of, like, the, I guess, stereotype of a Maddie for me is, like, just very hot. Like, there's just so many that come to mind from the people I've met. And so I feel like that's kind of the way I want to categorize this is like, okay, you've got a group of people named one thing that have this characteristic. The names that fall into that description for you are Enignames. If you hear the name James and you're like, I don't really have any opinion about those people, there's plenty of variability. Can't say I can generalize anything about them. Those aren't Enignames. But like something like Karen, I mean, those are very stereotypical at this point, where it's kind of like the get me your manager person. That would be maybe more of an example of a nickname, because that has a general association with it across the board. Of course, all Karens are not going to suck as people, but that's kind of the name that like that thought pops into your head immediately. I hear Maddie, I'm like, oh shit. They're probably hot. But like, of course they're not absolutes. There's gonna be variability. But the general rule of thumb can still be kind of accurate. And even if it's not accurate, like, ubiquitously, like, maybe it's just your experience. Like, every Jane I've met is a shithead. I don't know. Like, it can be different for everyone. But if you've got names in your life where it's like, oh, those people seem to always be like that for me, I guess we can probably categorize it as Enignames. And as we move on to our comment of the day, we've probably got to say the name Gavin for me tends to be greatest fucking people on the planet. Example. Comment of the day. Gavin said, deep video today, Mr. Wippy. Have to have another fun time up in here in Moorhead once this season is done. Little reliced. Talk about some actual reliced. Hang in there. Keep being fun, funny, great guy. Shout out Wippy and Wippy Thoughts. Keep the patience. Thank you for the comment as always, Gavin. Not sure if reliced is being used exactly correctly in this, but I think my definition was really probably pretty vague in that last video and was kind of ranty anyway. But appreciate the encouragement anyway. Gonna give this comment a 137 out of 210. Now for the song of the day, it will be Immortal by Kid Cudi. I sincerely love this song. Kind of another confident, self-belief one out of Kid Cudi, and one that's hard for me to skip like whenever it comes up. Video of the day is some of Gordon Ramsay's best insults from some of his TV shows, and I love seeing Gordon in basically any scenario. And that's gonna do it for the Daily Do. Peace out.